Kwaba, welcome to this week's edition of Ghana in Focus with myself, Kwame, Ghanaian writer, broadcaster, journalist, historian, entrepreneur, and podcaster. And this week's edition of Ghana in Focus is hopes and aspirations for 2026. So that's the theme for this podcast. Hopes and aspirations for 2026 in Ghana. So before we start the show, if you like what you hear, please share to your friends, family, social media networks. Subscribe to Ghana African Focus on YouTube. Look out for Ghana African Focus on YouTube. Hit the notification bell, meaning that every time we upload a new podcast, YouTube will notify you. This year, we want to get at least 100 subscribers on YouTube. We've got about 20 so far, so please tell your friends and family about Ghana African Focus. Similarly, on Spotify, you can get or look out for Ghana African Focus on Spotify. Hit the notification bell or hit the follow bell, meaning that every time we upload a new podcast, you'll be informed by Spotify. All right, and if you still want to do business in Ghana, help with land, buying property, know about the Ghana card, how to get a phone contract. We do have plenty of experience in Ghana, doing business in Ghana. So if you want to book a conversation with myself, then I'll leave my email address in the fullness to the show, and you can just, send me an email, and we can book you for a consultation to know what your needs and wants are, and how we can tell and make something for you, and also recommend, if necessary, to third parties that can help you with your relocation to Ghana. All right, and if you want to donate to a show to help us to continue bringing great content from Ghana, from Africa, you can donate as little as $3 a month. That can be either as a one-off payment or as a monthly subscription. All right, so if you want to donate, we accept donations in kind. I will leave you the donate link on the fullness of the show. All right, so let's get into this podcast, looking at hopes and aspirations for Ghana in 2026. So last year in Ghana was in part challenging year, and the dawn of a new government promised much in Ghana. So we're going to give our take as to what government has achieved so far, and also what we hope government can do going forward in 2026 and beyond, as it continues its term, or the NDC continues its first term as Ghana's government. So let's look at the economy. So this time last year, Ghana's economy was in a mess. The Akufo-Addo previous NPP government basically put Ghana's economy on a life support machine. They'd gone to the IMF for bailout or financial assistance, and the economy of Ghana was not that good, with a high debt ratio, GDP debt ratio, high interest rates, high inflation, and also a currency spinning out of control. Now, the new government of John Dramani Mahama was sworn in exactly a year ago on January 7th, 2025. And since then, they've done, to be honest and truthful with you, they've done great for the economy. So when they came into power, it was about 16 cedis to $1. As we speak right now, today, the 10th of January 2026, it is now 10.5 to $1. So the city has performed miraculously over the last year. In actual fact, depending on which sources you read, could be Bloomberg or what have you, the city is the best performing or has been the best performing currency in the world over the last 12 months. It has actually appreciated around about 40% over the US dollar alone. Yes, in 2025, the city was very, very strong because of the reforms that the Mahama government put in place. And key in that, is the gold reserve. So I've been saying for ages, particularly if you're a regular listener to Ghanaian Focus, that Ghana needs to leverage its gold in order to stabilize its currency. This is what major economies do in the Western Asia. They use gold to strengthen their currency when the economy is not doing too well. And so what we've seen in Ghana over the past 12 months is that the finance minister, as a result of John Dramani Mohamad's leadership, and also the Bank of Ghana, they have, and also in conjunction with the Gold Board, have constituted a policy whereby, all of Ghana's gold, unlike before, which was smuggled out of Ghana by Indians and Chinese, is now staying in Ghana. They've cut off that link, and that the Gold Board is buying gold from Ghanaian dealers, not from Indian, not from Chinese, but from Ghanaian dealers. Yeah. So in actual fact, this has helped Ghana sell a lot of gold to shore up its currency, and the gold issue in terms of the government of Ghana buying gold from Ghanaian miners, local miners particularly. I think about half of all the gold sold in Ghana last year was by small-scale local miners, legal and illegal. And this has helped tremendously with the city's performance over the last 12 months, as the government has used a lot of the gold that it has bought to stabilize the Ghana city, making the city strong, to the extent that the IMF have actually cautioned Ghana on this, saying that the policy is not sustainable. But hear what now? Ghana is due to leave the IMF program, the program now started by the NPP in 2023. Ghana is going to leave the program, I believe, in May this year. So only for 5 months' time. So what the government of Ghana is doing by using gold, or by getting enough gold and using that to show up the city, is, for me, is a game changer. And that's what all African governments must do. Use because many African countries mine gold. Ghana, Zimbabwe, South Africa. If you recall, I did the podcast about Zimbabwe, how Zimbabwe now are using gold to back up their currency. And that's going well as well. So most African countries mine gold, are gold producers. So they should use gold to use it to back up their currency, to make it more stronger, like Ghana has done. And so the city, because of this intervention by the government in terms of using gold as a bucketeer for its currency, has made the city the strongest or the best performing currency in the world this year. Appreciating more than 40% against the US dollar and other major currencies like the Japanese yen, the Chinese yuan, the UK pound, and the European Union euro. So, that's one side of the economy that has done well. Another side of the economy that has done well is inflation. We all know when inflation peaked at 54%, a whopping 54% at the back of 2022. When the NPP left office a year ago, it was hovering around 23-24%. Today, as we speak in Ghana, right now, today, inflation is 5%. So that's a massive drop month by month, year on year. The inflation now 5%. That does not mean that the cost of living crisis has gone away. What that technically means is that, the cost of goods and services in Ghana that were rising rapidly, particularly food, has now sharply declined over the last 12 months as well. So that's eased a lot, particularly in terms of food, because the food inflation, even up until about the middle part of this year, was relatively high. But now, food inflation in Ghana is either single digit or just hovering above, double digit. And so, inflation is another big policy for this government that we've seen, in the last 12 months. Again, interest rates have dropped in Ghana quite significantly. Since the beginning of the year, they're around about 30%. As we speak now, they're 20%. So that makes the cost of borrowing cheaper, which is good for Ghanaian businesses and other businesses who want to invest in Ghana and do business in Ghana. So even you, listen to this podcast as somebody from the diaspora or somebody who wants to invest in Ghana, now is a good time to invest in Ghana because the interest rates in Ghana have now tumbled a lot over the last 12 months, yeah, making the cost of credit much cheaper than what it was a year ago. So that's another positive impact the government has had on the economy of Ghana. And also, the big one for me, the GDP debt ratio, which was about 90% when the NDC came in, is now hovering about 65% and is expected to end the year 2026 under 50%. That is a massive improvement from the dark days of the NPP when the debt to GDP ratio was about 125%. Yeah. So what we've seen over the last 12 months by the NDC under John Mohammed's leadership is a massive, massive improvement within the Ghanaian economy. So low inflation, lower interest rates, a very, very stable and competitive currency, the Ghana cedi, and also, falling GDP debt ratio, which will allow the country to actually pay off its debt, the rest of its debts, which is going to do this year. Apparently, last year alone, Ghana paid the equivalent of something like $10 billion in terms of servicing its international debt, and which is why, and a lot of that was based on the gold that Ghana was getting, the receipts that Ghana was getting from the gold. Yeah. So it shows you, right, that what can be done if you leverage your minerals, yeah, to serve as collateral for your economy. And so 2026 promises to be a further improvement within the Ghanaian economy in terms of hopefully not seeing inflation go above 10%. There may be dips and peaks and troughs where it might go slightly above 10%, but the forecast for this year is to stay where it is around 5%, 6%. That'll be very, very good for Ghanaians, particularly when it comes to the cost of living crisis and also the cost of goods and services normally in Ghana. Also, the economy of Ghana is expected to grow around about 3% this year, which is very, very good. And hopefully on the back of that, interest rates can stay as they are or even lower, hopefully under 20%. That will also, instill growth and confidence and growth within the economy, whereby people will want to invest in the economy and as such create jobs, which is the central theme of John Mohammed's 24-hour economy. So we've talked about the economy where it was, where it is, and also the hopes for this year in terms of a further stabilization of the economy. The cedi will remain strong this year, as well. As long as Ghana uses its gold reserves to back up the currency, I didn't see the cedi going back, definitely not back to 15 as it was. It may go to about 12. I mean, the thing in the region of between 10 and 12, but no more than 12. So I can't see the Ghana cedi going more than 12.5 to 13 Ghana cedis to a dollar, all this year because of the stabilization effect that this policy of using gold reserves is having on making the Ghana cedi a strong currency. In actual fact, look at I've talked about the world. Look at Africa. Yeah, the strongest currency over the last 12 months is the Ghana cedi. Yeah, outperforming the South African rand, outperforming the Algerian dinar, outperforming the Moroccan dinar, outperforming the Tunisian dinar, and also outperforming the Kenyan shilling. Yeah, so Ghana has a very, very strong, powerful currency right now, which is why the IMF agitated, because it's competing with the likes of the dollar, the pound, and the euro. And so the economy this year will continue to grow strength by strength. And remember, this can translate into job creation for the country. And that's my next subject. So my aspiration for this year is that the government is able to really kickstart its 24-hour economy by creating the jobs that is needed to reduce the massive number of Ghanaians that are unemployed, particularly young Ghanaians under 30. Like I mentioned before, every year in Ghana, a quarter of a million people come out of tertiary institutions, whether it's colleges, universities, vocational colleges, etc. You know, quarter of a million people come out each year, and it isn't their jobs to cater for all those people that come out of the tertiary institutions, which is why rather there's a massive issue with youth unemployment in Ghana. And so, like I said before, what the government has got to do, if it's serious about the 24-hour economy, is three things. One, look at ways to strategically resuscitate some of the industries that Kwame Nkrumah built that were either left to rot or sold by Rawlings. One example is the Commander Sugar Factory. Yeah, that was producing sugar in Ghana's heyday in the 50s and 60s and probably to the early 70s. Yeah, so rather than importing sugar to tunes of billions of dollars, Ghana could revitalize the Commander Sugar Factory by even making Black people. So this is what I'm saying about, to localize the 24-hour economy scheme by allowing rich Ghanaians and rich Africans from America and from the diaspora to come to Ghana and invest in some of these factories that have been dilapidated. Prime example, Commander Sugar Factory. Yeah, or even use some of the gold reserves to build some of the factories. So for me, that can work in tandem. So using the gold reserves, yeah, to build factories, as well as giving incentives to Ghanaian businessmen who are rich, like I mentioned the other day, Richard Ni Kwe Ama, who is the Ghanaian franchise owner of Burger King. So this Richard Ni Kwe Ama has been able to get the franchise for Burger King Ghana. So all the Burger Kings you see in Ghana is actually run by a Ghanaian, this Ghanaian entrepreneur. He's only 40. Now, if the NDC were serious about 24-hour economy, it should be empowering Ghanaians like him, yeah, by giving them incentives to build factories that will enable the 24-hour economy to not be just a slogan, but to be a reality, yeah, by creating these factories and by giving young people employment. Because right now in Ghana, there's a massive issue with unemployment rather, and this has issues for things like prostitution and also illegal scale mining that I'll come on to, and also crime. Crime in Ghana is beginning to get out of control, particularly in certain areas of the country. And this is because of the high youth unemployment that prevails in Ghana. And so, if the government is serious about 24-hour economy, it should definitely use some leverage to, attract African Americans, rich Africans from the continent like Dangote, and also local successful Ghanaian businessmen like Richard Ni Kwe Ama to invest in Ghana, build factories, and at the same time, creating employment for those youth who are currently unemployment. And also, by doing that, those people will start paying taxes, and again, that revenue will go into the coffers of Ghana, and that revenue can be used for schools, roads, hospitals, etc. Yeah. So I think you get the gist of why the importance of the 24-hour economy in terms of giving incentives to Africans, Ghanaians, and African Americans. Yeah, because we don't want Indians or Chinese or Lebanese. They already have a massive, say in the economy of Ghana. And I will tell you in March, as part of that independent special, why Ghanaians are slaves in their own country. Yeah, because of the massive power that Indians, Chinese, and Lebanese have within the Ghana retail space particularly. And so for me, the 24-hour economy benchmark should be to allow rich Ghanaians like Richard Ni Kwe Ama and Ibrahim Mahama, Joss Pong, and also people like Parkway Sindum, give them incentives and let them build factories. Like the Commander Sugar Factory, revitalize these factories, right? Like the rubber factory at Bonsa, or the tire factory Bonsa, the jute factory in Kumasi, shoe factory in Kumasi, the glass factory at Boso. All these factories can be revitalized if the government of Ghana gives incentives to African Americans, Ghanaian businessmen, and also Africans from the diaspora or Africans in general, like Dangote of Nigeria. Yeah. So we hope that the government does that as part of its efforts to make the 24-hour economy a reality, not a slogan, and more importantly, by ensuring that the massive youth unemployment that we see in Ghana right now is actually reduced significantly by these factors. Now, our next issue that we're looking at as aspiration is housing. So I mentioned, in my budget analysis that I was very disappointed that the government did not have any firm, concrete policy on affordable housing in Ghana. And like I said, right now, there's a massive housing crisis in Ghana. At least 5 million housing deficit in Ghana. Many ordinary working Ghanaians cannot afford to buy a property because a lot of these properties are actually priced in US dollars. Yeah, and even for a basic family house, you're talking at least $125,000, $150,000. Yeah, and that's not even in airport like Bonny cantonments. This is probably outskirts of Accra, like Oyibi, like Ofariwa, like parts of Ebri, like Oyarifa. So many Ghanaians, 90% of Ghanaians, cannot afford to buy property. And so this is why all the big cities in Ghana, Takoradi, Kumasi, Accra, Tema, are becoming choked because when people migrate from the rural communities to Accra, Tema, Kumasi, Takoradi, these cities are already choked, yeah? And these cities are already, you could say, full to capacity. And so people are just building shacks on any piece of land they can get, yeah? And this makes, because there's no housing, there's no proper structured affordable housing, like there was in Nkrumah's day, like there was in General Champon's day, that there was a systemic, deliberate policy to build affordable houses for Ghanaians. That does not exist today. And as such, you got a record in particular in Accra and Kumasi, yeah? And so one aspiration and hope that I would love to see this year in Ghana is that the current government is able to formulate a policy whereby it can get some land. And there's lots of land in Ghana. There's land in Kumasi, Accra, particularly the outskirts, Tema, particularly, Community 25, that area, or even develop a new community in Tema, to build proper affordable housing for Ghanaians, which can then translate into buy to let or let to buy, where Ghanaian workers who are working for either government agencies or for banks or for private businesses can have the capacity to start renting the building and then later on buy that building, yeah, with the money going back to the government and then government using this revenue to build more affordable housing. That is something that I would love to see this year because the housing issue in Ghana is becoming, quite an emergency. And if nothing's done about this, yeah, and if the only housing that is built in Ghana is the luxury housing for the diaspora of those that can afford it, then we're gonna make a run for our backs in the future, whereby Accra, Kumasi, Tema becomes gridlocked because there's too many people in the cities and there's not a lot of housing for those people to live. Yeah. So I'm imploring on the government of Ghana to put together a framework for a policy that is aimed at affordable housing for the majority of Ghanaians who do not earn, let's say $5,000 a month. Many Ghanaians in Ghana do not earn $5,000 a month. In fact, I'm being generous. $3,000 a month is outreach for many Ghanaians. And so the government must take a serious look at this issue of affordable housing. Now, another aspiration that I would love for 2026 is, agriculture. the government is making noises about the Eat Ghana scheme, and also the Ingoko Nkintinkiti program, which is basically means, organic chicken, not this steroid or chemical-less chicken that Ghana is importing from the likes of the US, etc. And so, we're pleased that the government is investing in agriculture, and that should continue throughout the year. And as I mentioned before in another podcast, if the government is really serious about wanting Ghana to be food secure and not wanting Ghana to import billions of dollars worth of food, then it must either subsidize its farmers or give our farmers either interest-free loans or, loans at very, very low interest rates. Yeah, so that the farmers can use that money to help develop and take their farms to the next level. Yeah, by growing more food that can make Ghana food secure. All right. And also, so, and also by providing the farmers, like what Ibrahim Traore has done in Burkina Faso, like what Goita has done in Mali, and what they've also done in Niger, those three revolutionary African states, what they've done is they've invested wholesale in agriculture because they know that a country must be able to feed itself. That's the number one objective of any free country. The country must be able to feed itself. A country that does not feed itself sooner or later dies. And so these three countries in the Circle Sahel, we call it Ouagadougou, namely Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, have invested wholesale in agriculture in terms of getting the land, in terms of giving the farmers tractors and seedlings, and also giving the farmers markets where they can sell their finished goods. So Ghana needs to do this. I'm hoping that this year, the Eat Ghana initiative gives them sense of strength, and that the Ngoko and Kinting program also gives them sense of strength, where we support our poultry farmers in Ghana, as opposed to supporting other farmers, other poultry farmers around the world by importing their chicken, which is not necessarily good for us. Yeah, so that's my aspiration in terms of agriculture, that Ghana becomes food secure, and that, Ghana strengthens its need to produce more food. That can also make food a bit cheaper in Ghana, more cheaper than what it was this time last year, and also cheaper than what it is currently now, because food inflation is relatively high, but not as high compared to a year ago. But if this program is to make any sense to all the Ghanaians, then that should translate into, cheaper food, so that most of Ghanaians can afford to buy the food in the markets. Okay, and that also translate into Ghana exporting more food as opposed to importing food. So that's my hope and aspiration for the sector of agriculture. And my final aspiration is Galamsey, or illegal small-scale mining. As I mentioned before in previous podcasts, the small-scale mining in Ghana has become a toxic nightmare, which has seen Ghana's water bodies being polluted, Ghana's rivers being polluted, and many communities in Ghana are drinking polluted water. Yeah, even in Accra, where you have the pure water companies, how sure are you that pure water is safe? And even for those of you who don't buy pure water in Ghana, what about the water that you are bathing, that you're cooking with? Yeah, that you are, washing your food with. Is that water safe? Yeah, because like I said, most of the water bodies in Ghana have been polluted. Yeah, and so because of this illegal small-scale mining, Ghana say, so my hope for this year is that the government really tackles head on the issue of illegal small-scale mining and is able to actually nip it in the bud, so that our water is able to breathe again, so that our land is able to breathe again, and so that, the water becomes more cleaner, and that Ghanaians can drink cleaner water than what they're, because, you know, to give a Ghanaian terminology, right now, most of the water in Ghana is like Milo. Or to give a non-Ghanaian phrase, some of the water in Ghana is like brown coffee, if you get my drift. And so we hope that the government of Ghana is able to use whatever measure that it can to tackle this environmental nightmare called galamsey, illegal small-scale mining. But I'll be doing a podcast about that, and I'll tell you why, in my view, this current government will not be able to solve the illegal small-scale mining quagmire. I'll tell you why in the podcast that I'll probably be doing that in February or March, so look out for that. All right, so those are the areas of concern that we have hopes and aspirations for. We talked about the economy. We've talked about housing. We've talked about unemployment. We've talked about small-scale mining. And we've also talked about agriculture as well. Again, finally, on this, we want to improve health. So again, my aspiration for 2026 in terms of health is that every Ghanaian has access to affordable healthcare, and the NHIS, which is the National Health Insurance Scheme, is comprehensive and free to all Ghanaians, and so that most of the diseases that Ghanaians are suffering from is included on that National Health Insurance Scheme. You know, illnesses like cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, sickle cell. I think a couple of them, I think cancer and another one is not on the NHIS. So we hope that is rectified. And also that government to invest wholesale in equipment like prostate cancer screening, breast cancer screening, you know, diabetes machines, and also things that can spot your blood pressure as well, because those are facilities that are lacking in many hospitals in Ghana. And so we pray and hope that the government is able to, you know, invest in wholesaling in health and also improve the ambulance quality, because particularly, you know, outside of Accra, the ambulance service is very poor. You know, unlike the UK, US, Australia, or Canada, whereby if you're in for ambulance, the ambulance should come within, depending on where you are, minimum 10, 15 minutes, yeah? But in Ghana, right, even within Accra, sometimes hospital can take, you know, the ambulance can take 1 hour. In some cases, because of the lack of ambulances, you know, people are resorting to taxis and private cars to take their family members to hospital, yeah? So we hope that this is something that the government really takes on board, healthcare of the nation, including a robust and efficient ambulance service, because like I said before, health is your wealth. It's not how much money you got, but your health is your wealth, and your wealth is your health. Because with a healthy body, you can achieve whatever you want to, including getting wealthy. So we hope and pray that the government really takes on seriously the issue of improving the health outcomes of Ghanaians this year. All right, so that brings to an end this week's edition of Ghana in Focus with myself, Kwame, looking at the hopes and aspirations for Ghana in 2026. If you like what you hear, I appreciate to your friends, family, social media networks. Subscribe to Ghana African Focus on YouTube. Subscribe to Ghana African Focus on Spotify. All right, so in next week's show, we'll be talking about the wars that you don't hear about on the African continent. This one, we'll be talking about the Democratic Republic of Congo, why you listeners need to be aware of it, particularly if you use an iPhone. I will tell you what the connection is between the iPhone and the one in the Congo. So stay tuned for that next week. All right, so for myself, Kwame, and from the crew here on Ghana in Focus, thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you in the next edition of Ghana in Focus.